at a-hole for making a scene when I found out my sister put my niece up for adoption when she had her son. My sister had a second child, and we were all thrilled for her. She lives a few states over, and we haven't seen her this last year. She had one child 2 years ago with her boyfriend, and the other one was born last month. Yesterday, we had a family Zoom meeting to see the baby and to say hi to my other nibbling. We get on. Family starts to load in. Everyone is basically there thrilled to see the baby. We get to meet her new baby boy. After a bit, I asked to see my niece as well. My sister got quiet and very quietly said she doesn't have her. My aunt questioned this, and I was also confused. After a few minutes, my sister said that in the beginning of January, she put her daughter up for a closed adoption because she couldn't care for 2 kids. Everyone lost it. The whole Zoom was a mess. We didn't know. We never got to say goodbye. She didn't have to do this because any one of us would have taken my niece. Hell, I could have taken her. I've had multiple miscarriages / fertility issues, and although I am currently pregnant, I am stable, owning a home, and have the resources to have taken a toddler as well as have my baby. Important. My sister has always also said she wanted to be a boy mom. I lost it. I called my sister a narcissistic C-word. I asked her when she'd get bored of the new baby and get rid of that one too. I asked her how the hell she could do this without reaching out to family. I know my sister, and I know deep down she didn't want a daughter. She was depressed when she found out she was having a girl, but thrilled for this entire recent pregnancy. I called her a monster for making children she didn't want to care for, like they were a novelty. I said some other things too. At this point, my grandmother is a complete mess and says her chest hurts, so I stop. My aunt, who is with my grandmother, goes to help her and turns off the camera. My grandmother ended up having a panic attack that they thought was a heart attack at first. I'm so glad she's okay. My sister has since cut off all contact from the entire family. My father is pissed at me for blowing up. I was the only one who did, and says that I pushed her away. He said he could have tried to convince her to reverse it, but my verbal lash completely ruined any chance of getting my niece back. I don't think he understands what a close adoption means. Also, adoption takes a minute, so for her to have it completed by January makes me feel this process was in place for a minute. I don't think there's any chance of seeing my niece again when the mother and father both signed her to be adopted. He's mad at me because now he lost his granddaughter and is afraid he'll never know his grandson. My dad thinks I'm an A for freaking out and nearly giving my grandmother a heart attack. I'm feeling guilty that my grandmother had such an extreme reaction, but I feel that's more because she lost her great-granddaughter. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. For a moment, I misread it and thought she put up the newest baby for adoption, which, if she was worried about being able to support 2 children, I would have understood. Though with her knowing you are interested in adoption, I would have thought she was a little bit of an A. However, after realizing that instead she adopted out her 2-year-old, I'm just utterly sickened and stunned. I have memories from being 2 years old, so this is a child who is aware enough to remember her parents and other family. This is a child who loved them unconditionally, who understood what love is. I'm just so sick at the thought of this. Apologies for jumping on a top comment, and I know this is very dark, but I think OP needs to contact the police to check that the girl was in fact legally adopted by a family. I have trouble believing a social worker or any legit agency would allow this without question, /therapy, /intervention, or even contacting family. My fear is that the sister did this under the table to people who were not vetted or could be traffickers. Or worse, like Kaylee Anthony was supposedly with a babysitter. A closed adoption sounds like a great excuse as to why no one will ever see the niece again, and have no way of knowing it, checking up on if she was safe. Also, is the boyfriend okay, or is it possible he's mistreating her and pushed her to do this? Since Opie's profile is legit and not a throwaway, I have deep concerns and questions about this. Honestly, that's my fear too. Was this child actually adopted out? Does the boyfriend know? I would also get someone else's verification. Not a hole. I think this is one of the worst things I've ever seen on Reddit. I just can't get my head around it. OP, I suspect your dad was taking it out on you because you were there and your sister wasn't. Unfair, but your dad is just as blindsided as you are, so hopefully can be forgiven for his extreme reaction. The only comfort I can think to take is that if your sister really didn't love her daughter, Hopefully your niece has been placed with a family who will, and will have a better childhood as a result. But I'm so very sorry that wasn't with you. I'm honestly surprised that the authorities allowed a child to be ripped away from its wider family like this. It would be very traumatic. Did she lie and tell them there was no one willing to take the child or stay in its life? And if so, does that have any effect? I would speak to a family lawyer if I was you, even if it confirms that there is nothing that can be done. If this post is real, you should probably contact the police so they can confirm the child was actually adopted and that nothing horrible happened to her. Not a-hole. I am contacting authorities on this. First in her area and also my own lawyer. I'm concerned she wasn't properly adopted out. Edit to update. I've contacted the local CPS for my sister's area, local courts, and I have a lawyer looking into it for me, starting tomorrow as I just obtained him. Thank you for the helpful comments pointing out the issues with us. Especially thank you to those in social work who reached out to me privately. I didn't realize how many options I had to fight this, or to see if it was legit. I'll update when I find more out from the lawyer. Am I the a-hole? My brother and me made my dad leave for my mom's funeral? My parents haven't been together for 10 months because mom found out he's been cheating on her with one of their friends for I don't know how many years. The friend's the one who told her, not my dad. This messed up my mom, and she wasn't the same. He hasn't talked to me, 16 male, or my brother, 25 male, since he left. But we haven't wanted to talk to him either. I can't believe he hurt her, and it made me sad seeing the way it left her after. She tried to be strong for us, but I was up every night listening to her crying. My mom died and last week was her funeral. It took time to organize it. My brother and my grandma were in charge, and we kept it small for only a few people. My dad showed up in the morning and wanted to go inside, but we told him no. It was only a few family allowed in, and we didn't want him there at all. She died sad and hurt because of him. He tried to talk to us and said he loved her and wanted to be there for us as emotional support. I lost it on him. I told him to get the hell out, and we don't need no support from him. It was super emotional, I just wanted him to leave. My brother told him he's not welcome, and eventually he left, so we did the service in peace. There was some family there that wasn't happy that we kicked him out, and we've gotten talked to by them. They get why we're mad, but he was still her husband and someone he loved. So it might have been right to let him grieve like we are too. My dad has talked to our cousins about how hurtful that was that he didn't get to say his own goodbye and apologized for what he did. They told him to screw off and then told us all the other stuff he's been saying to everyone else. Mostly, everyone agreed we had every right to not want him there, but others that don't think so keep saying we were awful to not let someone grieving be a part of it. So I don't know what to think. I didn't want him there and my brother didn't either. But were we still a-holes we didn't let him in? Not a-hole. She wouldn't have wanted him there. You and your brother didn't want him there. And I assume nobody else there wanted him there. I'm not sure why anyone else's opinion matters. Just want to add, he cheated on her for years. How can you claim to love someone then do that to them? I don't want to be the grief police, but I feel like he lost the right to mourn her when he made the decision to cheat on her. Multiple times. For multiple years. Not a-hole. He was supposed to be her everything. Instead, he spat on all that and left your mother in pieces. He had 10 months to do something about that. Where was he back then? For her and you too. He was only there to save face. If she didn't die, he'd continue living as he did. Tell them what kind of person cheats on their loved one and only come to talk when she was 2 feet into the ground. If they can answer that in a way to change your mind, then they can say whatever, I guess. Wasn't around because he was ashamed according to him, and he knew we didn't want to see him. Plus, my mom didn't want to be with him. What a convenient excuse. Of course you two and she wouldn't want to even look at him. So what? If he really gave a damn, he'd try to at least admit that he made a choice. A stupid choice, and he's an idiot. He could have said so many things to make your mother feel better. Things at his expense. But that man is a coward. The fact he only showed up when she was dead proves as much. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my cousin that she's a bad parent and that her kids need to be taken away? I have this cousin. I'll call her Tess. She has 3 children, 2 girls and a little boy. She asked me if I'd come babysit them while she went to work because her babysitter quit last time. I was happy to. I drive out there and start doing my thing. Great kids they are, and I love spending time with them. I've always felt kind of bad for them because of multiple reasons in the past. Anyways, this time I had enough. I go to use their bathroom and it stinks to high heaven. Most awful smell I've ever smelled. I go try to use the potty because I really had to go. I had a long drive. I open the seat and they're stirred all the way to the top on this dang thing. I run out gagging. I asked the kids why it was like that. They said it's because their mom's friend came over and flushed a freaking phone down toilet. I then asked how long ago that was because, dang. They said they didn't know. I asked if they still use it, and they said no, and that they use the bathroom while at school. This is the really nasty part. When they had to go pee while at the house, they would just go in the yard. Which in my opinion is fine if they live in the woods or something. But they live in a trailer park. And little girls squatting to pee where people could see them pissed me off. And then I asked what if they had to do the number 2. These kids would take those little pudding cup things, eat the pudding, then poop into them and throw them in the trash. When Tess got home, I was livid. I asked White how she had not got that fixed right when it happened. Her response was she's seeing a guy that is a plumber. He told her he'd come check it out. I asked when he was supposed to come fix it. She said about a week ago. I was so frustrated with her I screamed at her in front of her kids. How she is a horrible parent and that the kids don't need to be around her and that they need to be taken away. She started crying and I left. I called her mom and told her the situation. And she told me that Tess was going through some hardcore depression and that she didn't know about what was going on but that she would take care of it. I feel like a knave for saying what I said, especially in front of her kids. I know depression can be really hard to deal with. Now for the top comments. Not Dayhall. Having depression is bad, but she is a mother. She can't let her kids be without a working toilet for weeks. If she can't manage everything because of her mental health, she needs to seek help. Therapy for her, family or friends for the kids. For her children. But you are Nahal for screaming before the kids. Why, I find not everyone's sex here? I can understand the screaming pretty well, and I would have done so myself. So I think it is a light a-hole move. Why still a-hole even light? The children had hard times with over a week without a toilet. And that is just what we and Dopey knows of. And I think you should never scream in front of children if you can avoid it. Yes, I agree. I feel bad for doing it. I should have held my anger and approached the situation in a better way for sure. You shouldn't feel bad for saying it. She is literally neglecting her children. You need to call Child Protective Services. Not Dayhall. That is serious neglect. Probably shouldn't have yelled at her in front of the kids, as they don't need the added stress. But those kids need to be checked on. If her depression is affecting her to the point her children have to defecate in pudding cups, thinking about how hard/messy that would be, there's also probably fecal matter everywhere. She needs help, and I'm thinking a CPS checkup. CPS definitely crossed my mind, but I didn't want to go that far just yet. That's why I called her mama and let her know. She's a wonderful person, and I knew she would do something about it. I'm going to check in all of them and keep in touch with Tessa's mom to be sure. Not Dayhall. Social worker here. Running water, functional toilet, heat, and electricity are absolute essentials. And not only could she lose her kids, she could face fines or jail time/probation for not having a working toilet. She must have this fixed ASAP. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for putting my sister in her place when she went after our family? I, 25 female, am the youngest of 4. My older sister is a mom of 5. Her older 2 kids are from her first marriage. When my sister's ex-husband died, 3 years after their divorce, she told us it made her life easier and that it would make it easier for her kids to accept the man she was dating at the time. The kids were 6 and 7. They met her current husband about 9 months after losing their dad. She was thrilled with how things were going, and so she raced down the aisle and then told the kids he needed to adopt them. They said no. They were crying, upset, angry, wanting their dad. Our whole family talked to her about listening to the kids. We said she needed to give them time and space. She didn't listen. Told them they didn't know what was best, and didn't realize what a good dad her husband would be to them. A decade later, and that has blown up in her face. The kids are constantly fighting, both of them. My nephew told his mom that she was a bad mother to them, and even if she hated their dad, he was still their dad, and they love him regardless of how she feels or felt about him. He also told her all she did was make sure they hate both her and her husband, which is what they call him. My sister then decides our family's the bad guy in all this, and decided to lose her crap with us, saying it was all our fault and that we didn't help her kids. And we obviously put all this in their minds. She even accused us of telling the kids what she said about their dad. But we didn't. We never spoke a bad word about anyone to the kids. And I cut her off once she said we wanted to mess up her life. I told her she messed up, not us. That she selfishly wanted her life to be easier instead of thinking about her kids. And that it was her fault her kids hate her, and she needs to own the choices she made if she's so sure they were the right decision. But I told her she should not. And instead of fighting us, she should try to save her relationship with the older kids before they cut her off for good and never give her the time of day again. She tried turning it around on us again, and I told her she will end up losing 2 of her kids, and it will be her own damn fault. She is claiming I was a witch to her. My family said they agreed with what I said, but maybe I shouldn't have lost my cool with her. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You were honest and told her something she needed to hear. Now it's up to her whether she can make any changes that might prevent her children from cutting her out. Not the a-hole. She made sure the kids absolutely felt she picked the new man over them, made them second choice, and now she's wondering why her selfishness is biting her in the butt. Not the a-hole. Sure, he could have been a little more sensitive, but she tried to force her kids to accept a new man in their life a year after the death of their father. If she can't see the issue here, she's definitely the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You shouldn't have lost your cool with her is kind of ridiculous when that was what she was doing. All you did was put her in her place. She is kind of an awful mother. I don't know who would see their children's father's death as a benefit, and then completely disregard their feelings and trying to replace their father not even a year after his death. How could she blame something completely her fault on you guys? I would cut her off completely. Maybe reach out to your nephews to see if they're okay. Update. My own friend convinced my husband that I cheated on him. He kicked me out of our house, and now she finally said she lied. Original post. I, 25 female, don't even know where to start because I'm devastated. She, 25 female, and I were best friends for over 10 years before all this happened. She was my sister, my friend, the person I trusted the most. But to her, I was never anything. Because if I had meant something to her, she wouldn't have stabbed me in the back just because I married the man she wanted. And this is important because she did all this for that very reason. 8 years ago, we met my husband, 29 male, at college. We were in our first year, and he was the assistant of one of our professors. The 3 of us became very good friends until he and I started dating. At that time, she never told me that she had feelings for him, so I never questioned my relationship with him. During all these years, I trusted her with very important things about my husband and myself. The last thing was the most important thing that I ever told her, and that was that I'm pregnant. I even told her before I told my husband, because I took the pregnancy test while I was with her because I trusted her with my whole life. And when the test came back positive, we both cried because it was a planned baby. She seemed so happy that my chest hurts knowing that all of that was fake. 6 months have passed since that day and my husband started acting weird. He was always mad at me for absolutely no reason, until I had enough and confronted him. He told me he's mad at me because he knows the truth. I asked him what he was talking about, and he showed me all the infidelity evidence he has. They were chats from a dating app between a man and me. And I use quotes because I never created that account. Someone else did and used my photos. Photos that I never posted and that I only have on my phone. So it is impossible that someone has stolen them from my social media. In those chats, I told this man that I was pregnant and that I didn't know if it was his or my husband's. In those chats, I even talked to that man about recent intimate encounters while I was pregnant, and things like that no husband or wife wants to read about their partner. I told my husband that everything was fake, and and that I wanted to know where he got those screenshots. And he told me that they are screenshots of my old phone, a phone that I supposedly used to talk to other men. He told me that my best friend told him everything because she couldn't look him in the eye knowing the truth. Apparently, she knew about my infidelities and told him to look for evidence on my old phone, and he did. And that's why he was acting weird the last few weeks. Of course, I told him that my friend is lying, and that she probably used my phone without me knowing to do that I never created any account, and that I never slept with another man other than him in my whole life. But he didn't believe me. We had a fight, and we called her to confront her. But all she said was that she was sorry, but that she no longer wanted to keep lying to one friend to save the other's butt. We had a horrible fight, but she was calm as a freaking psycho, insisting that I'm a cheater. And I couldn't convince my husband that it's all a lie because the evidence indicates that I'm guilty. So he was furious and told me to pack my stuff and get out, and that he wanted a divorce at a paternity test. I went to my mother's house and we did a paternity test, which obviously indicates that the baby's his. But still, he didn't believe me that I didn't cheat on him. We had a few more fights after we did a paternity test, and I ended up in the hospital because of the stress. And apparently that made my so-called fiancé reason, because she told my husband that everything he saw was fake, and that it was she who made both accounts, mine and that of the man I was supposedly cheating on him with. She said that she did it because she was jealous because since I'm pregnant, he doesn't pay attention to her anymore. She is very good friends with both of us since we met him, and that she lost her mind and acted in the worst way possible. She also said that now she's really sorry, that she never thought all this would go this far, and that she thought he'd just get mad for a few days and then forgive me because she knew that he loves me too much to forgive me anything. Since she confessed all that, he apologized in 1,000 ways, and we've talked a lot about what happened. And we have decided to give ourselves the space we need, and we will start going to therapy, but I don't know if that will be enough. Our relationship is at its worst. It's screwed up, and I'm afraid we can't work this out. And how could we? We said and did horrible things. During a fight, he told me to pack my stuff. I refused, and he took me by the arm to do it. And he was hurting me, so I pushed him and he hit a piece of furniture. And that's when he took me by the arms again. But this time he did it to shake me. But he is much stronger than me. Not only am I skinny compared to him, but he is also really tall. And when he did that, he really hurt me. And I don't know if we can be who we were in the past again. In the past, we almost never fought, and if we did, there was never any violence involved. How can we fix this, other than therapy? Now for the top advice. What a freaking psycho! This is a lot. The damage she inflicted over petty jealousy. How do you do something so deplorable to a person, let alone your best friends? People you claim to love, all while putting your friend's health and the health of her unborn child at risk. Just wow. This subthread never really shocks me, but this shocked me to the core. The evidence was so compelling from the husband's perspective, which makes it so sad. OP, if you're reading this, I hope both you and your husband give therapy a real shot. Don't let that witch win by jumping to divorce. It's so sad because it sounds like you had a healthy marriage before. I just hope that this is another hurdle you overcome and one that brings you closer in the end. And what about your husband and the ex-friend? Has he cut her out? And did she attempt anything with him while you were kicked out? Because if he's still talking to her in any capacity, that would be done for me. Yes, he blocked her from everywhere, and as far as I know, she never tried anything with him. Jesus, your friend is a psychopath. She didn't think it would go that far. The truth is, she wasn't ever that good a friend to either of you. Because if she was, she would have accepted that he is with you and moved on. Given the circumstances, I would think therapy is a must. I can't see how else you two would ever come back from this without a neutral party involved. And now for the update. Thank you all for the messages you sent me and the comments you left on my first post. I really appreciated it. Things have gotten a lot better since then. We talked to my now ex-friend, and she admitted to using my old phone to create that fake profile and also to message the other man. And I used quotes because that man never existed. It was her. She used that phone when she came to my house every day since we had a business together. She knew where the phone was, and she also knew that no one ever used it, so she had everything perfectly planned out, which is scary, because she really needs help. I mean, with all this, it is more than clear that she's a psychopath and needs help. She said all the things she did, and she had even told my husband that she drove me to meet that man so many times. And she told him that I made her pay with her card for the hotel where I met that man. And the truth is that I was never in any of those hotels. But all of that was right there, and it looked real, so of course he believed her. She has been my friend for many years, but she has also been friends with him for over 8 years. So we trusted her, and we never thought she would do something like that. And when she started telling me all those lies, it sounded real. In fact, the messages and everything looked very real. And I understand why my husband believed it. And if it had been the other way around, maybe he would have believed it too. On the other hand, my husband and I are still trying to cope with all this. After that violent episode, things got really hard between us. It is not easy to save a marriage once violence is involved, but we're trying. I came back home, and for now things are fine. But sometimes it's really warm here and I wear t-shirts, and he doesn't even want to look at me because I still have the bruises from his hands on my arms. And they don't look too bad now, but they're still there after almost 2 months of that episode. And I'm guessing they'll take a while to go away since I'm a very pale person and my skin is very sensitive. But my arms don't hurt anymore or anything like that, so I don't mind the bruises. He has apologized for what he did, and I forgave him because it was something that affected us both. And I understand that we both got violent and we're both guilty for screwing up our relationship. But like I said, we're still trying to get over it. And I guess it will take a while to get over it. It won't be easy, but we are willing to work hard so that everything will get better by the time our baby arrives in a few weeks. That's why we started individual and couples therapy, so we hope everything gets better. Now we are focused on that. We are preparing her room and buying things for her. And for now, that's working. Our relationship is slowly getting back to how it was before. And I'm really happy about that because we've loved each other for 8 years. And the last thing I wanted was to throw away our relationship after all that time. Because I know how our relationship was, and I know that this was the first time that we both reacted like this. And we promised each other that it will never happen again, and we will do everything possible so that it does not happen again. So that's all. To put your relationship to the side, if you're still covered in bruises after almost 2 months, you really need to go see a doctor. That slow healing could be indicative of some larger health problem. If you're having some issues with, say, blood clotting, you want to have the doctors figure that out now, instead of while you were giving birth. Usually bruises clear up in a matter of 1 to 2 weeks. If you're still black and blue after around 8 weeks, that is something your doctor needs to know about ASAP. It doesn't really matter that you're pale. It also doesn't matter however embarrassed you might be when the doctors ask you what happened, and you have to confess your husband hurting you. What matters there is your body isn't able to adequately clear the hematoma after an excessive amount of time. That's important medical information right there. Take it to your doctor as soon as you possibly can. Because despite all the miracles of modern medicine, plenty of people still bleed out and die during childbirth. If your body isn't handling bleeding in a normal fashion, including bruises, that is very important for your doctors to be on top of. Talk to a lawyer. She can be held accountable for a lot of that, and you can get a little bit of justice out of it for her screwing your life up. Not sure if this applies where you live, but in many places this is harassment and defamation. I would even wonder about financial damages / effect of the distribution of business assets. Glad you're doing all the therapy. I hope you dissolve the business partnership too. I will. I'm talking to my lawyer about it. Now for the last story. Update. My 28 female boyfriend, 30 male, keeps hanging out with a girl he has feelings for. Original post. He said he's been trying to get over her since before me, and that he thinks that if he keeps trying, it'll go away. I told him it doesn't work like that, especially if we've already been dating 10 years, and he was already trying to drop his feelings for her before he met me. I feel like he's lying, and he truly just wants to keep his connection to her. He left to go hang out with her at 9 and it's now almost 4 in the morning for me. He told me it wouldn't come to this, and he wouldn't be out this long. He doesn't have a phone, so if I want to message him, I basically have to message her. He also refused to let me come along, even though her and I get along amazingly. She's made it clear she's not interested and already has a girlfriend. I've started packing my things because he hypothetically asked me what would happen if he didn't come home tonight before I went out. I don't feel that there's anything left for me here. I made it clear that I don't think what he's doing is good for our relationship, but he went anyway. All he can ever say is that it's not his intention to hurt me. I keep having to remind him that the intent doesn't matter if he knew the outcome would be hurting me. I need some help, support, and an exit plan. Now for the top advice before reading the update. He still thinks he has a chance with her, but is stringing you along as a backup. If the second she actually wants to go out with him, he will flat out dump you on the spot. You're better leaving because this isn't a healthy relationship. This is exactly what I've been thinking about. It's all based on her. If she moves, he will, regardless of what we've built together. Yes, you have no future with him because he doesn't want you. Sure to say. Until he can get his head out of his behind and realize she doesn't want him, he can't have healthy relationships. I mentioned that to him as well, that this will continuously be a cycle unless he chooses to break it himself. All he cares about is staying close to her, even if it means they can only be friends. Well, back to packing. I really wish you well. In this instance, it was all on him. He ruined the relationship, not you. You deserve better and I hope you find it. Maybe someday. Thank you. And now for the update. I went to sleep and woke up to him cuddling me, which was very upsetting, especially after the night I've had. He came home around 5 a.m., a time he told me was only hypothetical and wouldn't really happen. We had a talk where I made it very clear that if this is how he loves me, then it's not the love I want anymore. He didn't want to tell me anything at all and just kept saying, "I don't know," to every question I asked him. But if the situation were swept, he would need every detail. Matter of fact, I wouldn't have even been able to go. I packed the bulk of my belongings and have hidden them in easy-to-grab places. I've got 4 days left in my college course before I take my certification exam. I'm very glad he stayed out all night, because I've never felt this much love for myself since before meeting him. He knocked me down so many pegs that I forgot how much I was actually worth, and was willing taking scraps of love. This isn't even the worst that he's done, and we should have been over a long time ago. Hate that I'm just fully realizing it now, but I'm glad I did it all. It hurts, but not as bad as staying as someone's second choice. He probably won't even remember the conversation as he never does, but I'm done explaining it over and over again. The plan is to stick it out until the end of the week, take my certification exam, pack up all my stuff, and leave in the middle of the night. My sister lives in another city and already has a place for me to stay. Luckily, my mother is in town as well and plans on staying until I'm ready. I'm letting him keep his gifts, because once I'm gone, he won't have internet until he gets it himself. It's getting turned off and moved to where I'm going. I will also be taking his cell phone off my contract. I really didn't understand how much I paid for his life until I started disconnecting and removing everything a piece at a time. I just did it because I love him and wanted him to be taken care of. The time I spent gone last night was everything I needed to get my life together. He knows the best ways to guilt trip me, especially after going to counseling. I'm not going to keep doing this fight, and I'm the only one actually making progress. I have held him up and backed him up on so many things in life. I never expected to get to this point. Thank you to everyone who helped talk things out with me. I was so distraught that I couldn't even think or move. Definitely made it easier to keep pushing on. Everything is packed but my little library and PC setup. I don't even think he noticed when he came back, but I'm sure he'll be asleep all day. Doing a once-over and finishing packing. My mother will be back later to pick up a few things at a time under the premise of just wanting to see her daughter. Mom is with a plan, and I'm loving it. For those of you who believe that we could have worked things out, we could have, but that takes the both of us being willing to do that. Not just me. This isn't even everything, my guys. I know it may feel like an attack on men to you, but if I told you everything, you wouldn't feel that way. Trust me, I want it to work out too. But he has made it very clear that he would drop me if it meant keeping her, even just as a friend. If for any reason she told him they can't be friends because of me, I would be a hot potato, dropped on the floor, guts everywhere. Joke, but you get the picture. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. I feel like I'm finally about to get everything that I've ever wanted and needed. And I hope you do too. Am I the a-hole for wanting to give up my son after discovering he isn't mine? Original post. The situation is nothing short of a nightmare. I'm angry, depressed, and sad, and I don't know what to do. I, 32 male, am shattered and don't know where to turn. My wife passed away last month, only 7 months after giving birth to our son. She developed peripartum cardiomyopathy, a rare and severe form of heart failure that can occur in the months following childbirth. Despite the doctor's best efforts, she didn't survive. Losing her so suddenly has left me heartbroken and in a state of constant grief. 3 weeks ago, my wife's best friend came over to visit. She was visibly nervous and eventually told me she had something sensitive to share. After some hesitation, she revealed that my wife had confided in her that she'd been unfaithful around the time our son was conceived and that there was a chance he might not be mine. I was stunned and angry. My wife's best friend was telling me this only weeks after my wife's death. It felt like an attempt to tarnish her memory. I couldn't believe it. I told her to leave and not to come back, convinced she was lying or trying to shift blame onto me somehow. The whole thing felt like a betrayal, and I tried to push the thought out of my mind. But once the idea was planted, it wouldn't go away. I kept wondering, what if she was telling the truth? After days of tormenting myself with this possibility, I decided to get a DNA test. It wasn't an easy decision. I felt guilty for even considering it, but I needed closure. Yesterday, the results came back. My worst fears were confirmed. My son isn't biologically mine. Now I'm in a turmoil. I loved my wife and I wanted to believe our son was a piece of her and me together. But knowing he's not biologically mine has left me feeling lost and betrayed. I keep looking at him, trying to feel the same bond, but the pain of my wife's infidelity is so fresh, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to move past it. I feel awful even considering it, but I don't know if I can raise him on my own. The betrayal I feel is overwhelming, and I don't know if I'm capable of giving him the love and care he deserves. It's breaking my heart, and I feel like a failure, but I also feel like I'm not equipped to give him the life he deserves. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Have you thought to call her friend and ask who the father is? That took a lot for her to tell you. She could have never told you. The right thing to do first is attempt to find this guy and inform him. I haven't contacted her since that day. However, your suggestion is sound and I definitely contact her for his details, if she has any. More than likely she knows who it is. Be sure to apologize and say it was such a big shock, but you appreciate she told you the truth. Do you recall looking back things that didn't add up? Did she ever mention a guy and put off like the person was a friend or co-worker? Did any guy stand out maybe at her service or anything like that? Did you look through her phone since finding out to see if there was anything on there? Look at her bank statement for unusual charges and when she could have been seeing him. Not the a-hole. It's not the child's fault. You should tell your wife's family so they can take him. I worry if you raise him, you'll always resent him. I'm so sorry for your loss and your wife's betrayal. Please get therapy so you can heal. Best of luck, Obi. Not the a-hole. The child will feel that hesitation and frustration by the time they're in kindergarten. They won't understand why, but they will sense the mood, no matter how well you try to mask it. Feelings aren't right or wrong, they're just feelings. But they can definitely influence others. Your late wife presumably has living relatives. Contact them about it and involve them in the situation. I wouldn't just hand the baby over to the state without telling them. But if an actual relative is willing to step up, that would be a better outcome. Not the a-hole. I'm sorry this has happened. Unfortunately, now he is a reminder of betrayal and a reminder that your life with your wife was a lie. It might be best to put him up for adoption or let your wife's family take him. You will never have the bond with him that you would have had if this truth had not been uncovered. I haven't told anyone yet about the test. However, I think it'd be best if I do so immediately. Now for the updates. I hadn't thought of contacting the friend, but I will now. The replies have really solidified what I have been feeling. The child is innocent, but I don't think I'd be able to love or care for him as well as I should. Informing the family will be my first step. then contacting the affair partner if possible. Adoption will be my last resort. Many of you may believe I'm a monster, but put yourself in my situation. I hope you all understand. Mini update 2. I called her friend, apologized for my behavior, and also asked why she hadn't informed me as soon as she knew. She said her loyalties lay more with her friend than with me. Okay, fine. I asked her about the affair partner and she said she doesn't know, as it was a one-time thing. Apparently, it happened during her work time, whatever that meant, and during the daytime as she'd been told. I'm not fully understanding, but it seems like she was with a guy when she was supposed to be working. Many of you are suggesting I go through her phone or other social contacts, but I don't know any passwords. I never doubted her. We weren't controlling of each other and we gave each other plenty of privacy. The next step is informing the family. Both mine and hers. I want to clarify, I don't hate the baby, and I'm not so heartless that I'd throw him out of the house. Whatever happens will be handled according to procedure. I'm not going to instantly abandon a child just because he isn't mine. Now for the full update. Thank you to everyone who reached out with advice and support. I didn't get to respond to every message, but I really appreciate it. After finding out my son isn't biologically mine, I decided to tell both my family and my in-laws. My family was shocked and angry about everything, but they stood by me. My in-laws were also shocked but didn't believe it at first. They asked to see the DNA test results, and after seeing them, they suggested we do a second test with both families present, just to be sure. They said that if it confirmed he isn't mine, my late wife's sister, who has a 4-year-old daughter, would adopt him and I could take my name off the birth certificate if I wanted. I agreed and we did a test yesterday. The results should come in about a week. Honestly, I'm relieved with how things are playing out. There hasn't been any drama and everyone's been understanding. I've also talked to a lawyer who said getting my name off the certificate should be straightforward with the test results. Thank you all again for the support, and for those who offered to adopt him, I'm sorry, but your kindness means a lot. I'll update when the final results are in. Not a-hole. This is heartbreaking knowing the last living piece of your wife's memory is just a reminder of her betrayal. It must be such a relief to have everyone on the same page and avoiding drama. I hope everything works out in a way that brings Soapy peace. I don't know. I think knowing she was a scumbag could also make it easier to let go of the idea that a perfect life was ripped from his grip. It's horrible in the short term, but wouldn't you rather have a dead crappy ex than a dead great one? I'm glad they are testing both sides of the family just in case a mistake happened at the hospital. Yeah, imagine if it wasn't the wife's either. I know a family who had this happen to them. Took a baby home, and 9 days later found out they were given the wrong baby to take home. It was a nightmare. Wow, what happened after they discovered it? Were they able to get their biological child? Yeah, they didn't even realize it wasn't their baby. The hospital called to let them know that their baby was back at the hospital and that the baby they had at home was someone else's. It turned out their baby had gotten sick. And after a blood test, the doctors informed the parents that their baby's blood type didn't match the one recorded at birth. I think they cross-checked other babies born around the same time and realized it was probably this family. They all took a DNA test, and when the results came out, they swapped the babies back. But there were plenty of tears and sobbing. The mothers had been breastfeeding the babies and were both quite attached to them. I think the kids are about 2 or 3 years old now, and last I heard, the families were still good friends. Next story. Am I the a-hole for wanting a divorce immediately after my husband's affair with a coworker? We have a 4-year-old. Context. Last week, I discovered Teams messages between my husband of 4 years and a coworker that were spicy, to say the least. They were claiming to have animalistic thoughts about each other, saying that caring for each other was their main priority, and my husband even told her that he thought they would be together a few years from now. Although the spicy messages seem to have mostly occurred in the last couple of weeks, their discussion history was long and extensive, with deep conversations about shared music, books, TV interests, things happening at home, and their feelings and emotions. One of my husband's messages implied that some version of this affair had been going on for at least 6 months. The night before this discovery, we had actually made a commitment to each other to really try again in our marriage. I prompted this conversation because I could sense something felt off or different. We both agreed to put in the effort. However, when I found messages the next day, there was no indication that he was planning to end things with her, despite our conversation the night before. I think he intended to try with us and continue things with her as well. As soon as I discovered the messages, I left the house and haven't seen him in person since. My 4-year-old son and I are now back in the house, while my husband stays with his parents until we make long-term arrangements. Given other tumultuous times in our shared history, including drinking issues on his part around the time our son was born, I met with a divorce lawyer today and I'm strongly considering proceeding. I let him know this. The problem is that, of course, he's now telling me he loves me, loves our family, and wants me to come back home to make things right. He keeps saying I did things over the last couple of years that led to us being unhappy too. I've never cheated. That he was lonely, wasn't in the right frame of mind, and that because it wasn't physical. He didn't actually cheat, though in the messages he mentioned wanting a part of her body. He keeps saying he wants to have a conversation, but I feel like taking it off text messages will just give him more leeway to avoid certain questions I ask. At first I was so sure I wanted to move ahead with a divorce. Now I'm emotional and confused. Am I moving too quickly with all this? Should I have a conversation with him first? Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. He's guilting you and is only sorry because he was caught and you deserve better. Divorce the unfaithful sack of a turd and go live a fulfilling life with your son. Congratulations on losing the dead weight. My son is the single biggest reason I met with a lawyer today. Thinking of his future and wanting him to have security in his day-to-day life is keeping me going. You want him to see you modeling a healthy relationship, not a toxic one. Don't stay with a cheater. Don't fall for that sudden change of heart BS. Follow through with the divorce and make it hurt financially. That's the other hard part of me. Thinking about the finances element somehow adds to the guilt. The fact that he's blaming you for his cheating is unreal. He even predicted the end of your marriage in his messages to his girlfriend. He just gets to be her horrible partner a little sooner. Forgot to add she's married too. Okay, well, I'm petty as hell, so I'd tell her spouse what's going on. Update. Thank you to those who've shared their stories, offered their perspective. This has been immensely helpful, and I think got in my head in the right space to keep moving forward. Or at the very least, not halted today. Next story. Am I the a-hole for wanting to dump my boyfriend after he lost my savings in a scam? I'm currently trying to decide whether I should end the relationship or if it's even reconcilable. My boyfriend and I moved across the country for my job. He works remotely. I am the breadwinner, making 4 times as much as him. He has lived at home his whole life and has never paid bills before, aside from credit cards. When we arrived at our new home, he was in a trading group and seeing great returns. He convinced me it would be a good idea to invest my money too. So I did, and I fully accept the consequences of that. It turns out the group was a scam, and between the money we pulled together, we were only able to withdraw $10,000 of the $25,000 we invested. I invested $15,000, and he invested $10,000. Since I'm the higher earner, I told him to keep the $10,000, and I would work hard to recoup my loss since it's easier for me to do so. I asked him to keep the money as a nest egg and not to trade it. Fast forward a few months. I've recovered. I took us to a nice vacation and paid for most of it. No problem since I make more. We came home from the vacation and I began looking at homes to purchase so we could start our life together. I asked him if he could contribute a portion of the $10,000 toward a down payment for our house. He then informed me that he had attempted to trade the money to make back our loss and lost it all. He never even told me about it or consulted me before he did it. He has an expensive knife collection back home, and it's worth noting that half of his paychecks go toward paying off his debts, so he can't contribute much to bills. He won't sell off the collection to put himself ahead in life. Am I the a-hole for dumping my boyfriend for being poor with his money and making bad decisions? Girl, what? You can't be this afraid to be single. Have some self-respect. He lost money you worked for and you let him off the hook? Hey, the first incident is as much her fault as his. He's obviously an idiot, but anyone putting that kind of money into something needs to do their own research, especially if the person bringing the offer doesn't exactly have a strong financial background. No, you're sensible. Incompatible financial values are the major cause of divorce. I think it's hard because for the first year everything was storybook perfect. Felt like I was going to spend my life with this person. Then the financial woes started to unravel and it's just hard to accept. I know what I need to do, but reading outsiders' perspective makes me feel more confident and serves as a reminder that I'm not being irrational. Last story. Ex-husband requesting I message in a group text with his fiancé. I have been divorced for 12 years, and my kids with him are 15 and 17. We have very minimal contact. I really try to text only when necessary. Recently, I sent a courtesy text to my ex-husband about a small purchase for a necessity for my oldest, so that his dad doesn't buy it too. The follow-up text from him was, "Hey, I just want it to be known I want my fiancé included in the messages. Whatever you text, she knows anyway. No point leaving her out. If you leave your husband out, that's not my business. Whether you like it or not, she's just as much a part of their lives as I am. So in the future, please include her. I'm not trying to start anything. I feel like it's a respect thing to include her. Fiancé is my other half, and we make decisions together. Thanks." Am I the a-hole because I do not want to message both of them? In the past, when I tried to include her in an effort to get along, anytime there was a disagreement, it became a 2 versus 1 argument. And they had what I feel is verbally abusive communication. In this instance, my ex said I was being childish, ridiculous, etc. because I said no. He is relentless in this request. Not the a-hole. I will message you as required about our children. What you do with those messages, if you share them with your fiancé or not, is not my concern. I intend no disrespect, but how you handle your relationship is on you, not on me. And, to be clear, you don't get to tell me what to do, so stop trying. I'm petty. I'll include her in the texts when you add her to our custody agreement. Until then, per our legal paperwork, I will only be communicating with you. It's not your problem if his fiancé is so insecure about a relationship that's been over for 12 years. I often wonder if he messed up and she feels like she can't trust him. I don't understand step-parent insecurity. I left him 13 years ago and have never regretted it for a moment. Update. I just found out that my husband, separated, is dating my boss. I don't know what to do. Original post. I started this job about 1.5 years ago. I can't say what it is because I want us to stay anonymous. And our country is very small, so my boss would probably be recognized. The moment I started, I felt like I was in the right place. My boss, the owner of the company, is very cool and kind. She's self-made and she loves her job. She does a lot of the dirty work herself. That bosses who has 30 to 35 employees wouldn't have to do. But she loves it. On top of that, we have a 6-hour workdays. Our salaries are 20% higher than the market, and we have 7 paid vacation weeks a year. Her reasons? She appreciates us, and she's getting richer anyway. I was so proud of working with a woman like her, so I wouldn't shut up talking about her to my husband, especially in the beginning. My husband was as fascinated by her as I am, until I met her in a company party last Christmas. She must have been beautiful when she was young. She could have been a model. I think his fascination became a crush or an obsession, or maybe worse, love. Now he follows her on social media. Her accounts are private, but I stalk her with my account. He also follows the company IG and likes every picture she's in. He asks about her all the time. She's a very private person, but when her divorce from her ex-husband was finalized at the beginning of this year, we all found out because he started showing up to work. He owned half of her company now, and he started to try to make changes in our work hours and salaries. We found out that her husband had cheated on her with a younger girl, who he also tried to employ in our company. She still works with us. She, with probably lawyers involved, eventually convinced her husband to sell her back a share. We're still in this process now. My husband has followed all this, and he was so sad for her and so angry. How could anyone do this when they had a woman like her? If it was him, he would cherish her, love her, blah blah blah. Who leaves a woman for a girl? I got very angry and told him that all men prefer younger women if they could choose. He laughed at me and told me only losers do that. The last drop was last Friday. We were out for a movie night and we saw my boss with a young man. He looked his mid-20s and my husband lost it. He didn't know that she dated younger men. He wanted us to go say hello, but I refused and yelled at him to control himself because he looked pathetic. When we got home, he was frenetically going through her social media until he found a guy and he sighed in relief. The guy was her nephew, and we didn't see the whole company, but they were out with other family members. My husband was so happy, like a weight lifted off his chest. I lost it on him. I started crying and yelling and told him he was in love with her, and he was shocked when I pushed and kicked him out of our bedroom and locked the door. He stood outside trying to calm me down, telling me he loved me and I'm his girl, and always will be. Then he said something that ruined me even further. It's not like someone like her would look my way. I haven't slept since then. Why is he feeling like this? Is it love? Infatuation? She's too old for my husband, so what is it? And why would he think he couldn't have her? He's very handsome and still young. She should feel lucky a young handsome man likes her. And does he mean I'm less than her to accept him? Or is it purely her money and status? He refuses to admit anything. And what can I do now? I love this job. I love the benefits. Thanks to this job, our life has improved and we can afford more than just the necessities. I'm starting to hate my boss though, and I hate myself for idolizing her in front of my husband. Edit. Sorry this is getting longer. But I have spoken to my mother, sister, granny, and some friends about this, and about what happened last Friday, and they all think I'm making a big deal out of nothing. Now for the top advice before reading the updates. You know your husband is at fault here. Not you and not your boss. He's acting very inappropriately, and the things he said would make me feel very insecure as well. Put the blame where it lies, at his feet, for saying and doing the things he has to make you feel this way. I would say, either attend therapy together or even separately or consider a break. You need time to evaluate the situation properly, and your family isn't being very supportive by dismissing your very valid feelings. I wouldn't be asking them for advice going forward. I get they are cheaper than a therapist, but they are clearly being biased. This is not your fault. Your husband is on the hook for this one. It's not like someone like her would look my way. It sounds like he's saying that if your boss gave him a chance and looked his way, he'd probably jump at it. I understand why this is like the straw that broke the camel's back. You don't trust this as a reassurance of anything other than your right to feel betrayed. To be honest, I find it very difficult to feel sympathy for OP because she subtly tries to bring down her boss / make herself appear superior due to her age alone. 1, she's too old for him. There is only 9-year age difference between the boss and the husband is also almost in his 30s. He and OP are both no longer some young and naive teens / early 20s anymore. 2, she must have been beautiful when younger. She's only 38 and technically still young. And beauty / attractiveness doesn't magically disappear after hitting 30. Also, some people age like fine wine. 3, suggesting boss somehow got cheated on because the affair partner was younger. Except that cheating only says what a POS the ex was. The age of OP's boss nor that of the dumb affair partner didn't have anything to do with it. Time for OP and husband both start to act mature. Husband to stop acting like an obsessed teen / stalker. And OP stop attributing attractiveness to be age-bound and putting the blame on someone else than her husband. Now for the first update. Hi, I'm in so much pain and I don't know what to do. I don't want to do something stupid while hurting. I got a lot of good advice last time I was here, so I don't know. Maybe you can help me this time too? So, I went against my family and friends and asked my husband for separation. I felt like my heart couldn't take it anymore. My intuition told me that my husband wasn't all mine. This was shortly after the event at the movies. My husband was in total confusion. He said that I was making a mistake, making a mountain out of a molehill, but he moved in with his brother however. We decided to start couples counseling too. It went well the first 3 weeks or so, but my husband became more and more reluctant to participate, and sometimes he just canceled on me last second. He stopped showing up this month and he also stopped calling and texting me. I was even more heartbroken, but it just solidified that my intuition was right and that I was doing the right thing, seeing that he is not interested in working on us anymore. I chose not to quit my job. I still love it, even with all the heartbreak, and I really needed the benefits. Like, I'm the only one I know who is having 3 weeks paid vacation around Christmas and New Year. I never see my boss anyway, and she doesn't even know of my existence. My husband eventually stopped being active on Instagram, and I thought it was normal because we were going through adversities. Until yesterday, when his brother shared my husband's stories of the night. My husband was in a restaurant holding a woman's hand. I could only see her hand. So, my husband has just blocked me and my family and friends from seeing his updates. I commented WTF, and this morning my husband called me for the first time in months, totally scared, and started begging, "Please don't ruin this for me. Please don't ruin this for me." I told him, "What do you mean?" He said, "Don't tell her about us." I never made a connection at first. It never ever crossed my mind even that that woman in the picture was my boss. I started crying and screaming at him. "How could you do this to me? How could you tell me that it was all in my head when it's obviously all over your Instagram?" He said it just happened, that I dumped him and he was single and just happened to find her on Bumble. He begged me not to ruin this for him. She knows he's in the process of divorce, but she doesn't know that he already knew who she was, or that she was the boss of his soon-to-be ex. They have been seeing each other for 6 weeks, about 2 weeks after I asked him to move out, and it is getting serious. He begged for a good 5 minutes, telling me how he hasn't been this happy in all his life, and that I shouldn't ruin his happiness, since again I was the one who ended our marriage. I have been crying since this morning. I don't know what to do. I want to ruin him and his happiness, but I don't know if I have any right to do that. And I'm so worried about losing my job. Please help. Now for more advice before reading the latest updates. Wait, so they met at a company Christmas party? Does she know he is your husband? Girl, you need to talk to her. Look, don't worry about losing your job, because if they become serious, do you think your boss will still treat you fairly? There is a high chance he will give a different story. Update us once you talk to her. Do this for yourself and be strong. She probably didn't recognize him because he told me that she thinks they met on Bumble. As everyone else has said, you need to tell her. You also need to tell her what happened in your relationship before and how he was constantly stalking her social media and the comments made to your face as his wife before dating her about her. You can't double guess yourself. You have a voice. I see the comments that you're really debating it because he thinks you did it because you're bitter. Of course you're bitter. You were in a marriage with someone you loved. And vindictive? Who cares? He's a freaking a-hole. And you're also worried about her and what she might think? Please, you have a voice. Do not stay silent. None of this is your fault. It's all on your ex-husband. I hate seeing how women lose themselves because of what might happen. Look at what your husband did to you. Really, take a step back and look at what he did. He doesn't deserve anything good. If I were you, I would have told her a long time ago. And who cares what she thinks? Personally, I would find it disgusting that a married man was actively looking for me in social media and being angry for seeing me with someone else while he's married. What she decides to do is on her, but listen to me if you read this comment. Do not hide. I think you need to tell her. If the guy I was seeing for 6 weeks happened to be stalking me before we met, I sure as heck would want to know. How much of his relationship with her is real? How much of a show is he putting on for this poor woman who's already been screwed over by one man? Of course he is happy. He has the object of his desire. He literally got what he wanted. How did he even find her on Bumble, let alone match with her and start dating her? I'm not even buying this. I also feel that she deserves the truth, but he will probably think I was being vindictive and bitter about our separation. And wouldn't she resent me if she likes him? Or would she be grateful? Oh my goodness, OP. I read your previous post. Given what you've said about your boss, going through a divorce where her husband was cheating with one of her employees, is very private, etc., I think you truly need to say something. Your soon-to-be ex's behavior, blocking you and your friends and everything, is incredibly troublesome. Your soon-to-be ex sounds obsessive and stalkerish. I'm so sorry this is happening to you. How stressful. I'm not too sure which country you live in, but part of me wonders if you should either go through your work employment lawyers when going to your boss with this information. I wouldn't put it past your soon-to-be ex to try and sabotage you. I would also file a police report with your concerns. Her husband employed his mistress after the divorce. When my boss bought her company back from her ex, she didn't fire the mistress. Now the mistress is engaged to the ex-husband. Now for the second update. Okay, my husband has been calling me non-stop, but I have now answered him. He is panicking about me telling her everything, so he begged me to give him the chance to tell her himself. His words were, "I never stalked her or creeped on her. I just fell for her and was scared that she would think I was creepy since you thought the same. Give me a chance to tell her the truth in my own pace, so at least she doesn't think I'm a liar or a freak like you seem to think." He still swears they matched on Bumble. I didn't know what that is until now. I'm just devastated right now. He has no regards for me and my feelings. Everything he is thinking of is not to scare her away. When I told him this, he said that I was the one who left him. People fall out of love, and that's okay and no one's fault, and that I was in the right for ending the relationship. But I was the one who ended it all the same. Don't hurt us, and I promise to give you everything you want. She's happy with me, so don't hurt us. Now for the last update. I talked to my boss yesterday, Monday, after lunch. I told her everything. Basically, how I was so happy I found this job, how I looked up to her and was proud to be working for someone like her, and that this rubbed off on my husband who grew more obsessed with her each day. I apologized for using obsessed, because I didn't know how things were between them, but that it was how I perceived his feelings. I told her about the day at the movie, and how it basically made me realize that our issues were greater than I thought. I told her that I know and accept that my marriage is over, and that my husband didn't love me anymore, and that the reason I'm telling her now isn't to judge or blame her, but to let her know the whole story, because it's just fair that she knows that he has been following her life for over a year now. Because from what I understood from my husband, you were under the impression that you just matched with him on a dating app, I said. She was silent the whole time I was talking, just listening to me, until I mentioned the dating app, and that's when she interrupted me. That's not how we met. He has been a patron at my gym for the past 6 months, maybe a year, she said. I know her gym. It's the one across our workplace. She works out there every morning before coming work. I didn't know he had joined it, because I knew him to be a member at the gym near our home. He has been, without telling me, working out just across the street from me every morning, without telling me. She looked like how I felt, shocked. I apologized and told her that he has kept dating her a secret from me, and that he begged me not to talk to her, telling me that he hasn't been this happy and so on. She didn't say much, just thanked me for telling her. Today she asked if she could talk to me. She apologized for everything that happened to me and asked if I needed any help. I said no. She thanked me again, and when I got home, my husband was there. He had called me at least 50 times, but my phone wasn't silent. He was crying, calling me bitter and vindictive and pathetic. He said I ruined his relationship and future. She's scared of him now, and it is all my fault. He wants me to tell her that he is not dangerous nor he is a pervert. He wants me to tell her that I was the one who wanted a divorce, and that people fall out and in love, and it is nobody's fault, and neither it is creepy. He hasn't done anything wrong. He stayed faithful to me and would have stayed that way if I didn't kick him out. He asked me if I ever felt unsafe with him, to make rumors about him being a stalker and a creep. I should tell the truth. I asked him to leave and that I'm starting the divorce, and from now on, he could only contact me once I got a lawyer through them. I have been crying since he left. We haven't seen each other for weeks, and he had no feelings whatsoever for me. He looked demented and full of sorrow like a broken little boy. How could it change this fast? Before we separated, he held me and begged me to believe him and his love for me. Was it all a lie? My whole entire relationship? Good night and thank you for the support. Thanks for updating, OP. I'm glad you got to tell your boss and that she'll listen to you. Now you know how much of a creep your ex is. He openly stalked her at the gym all year, and your boss is quite rightly scared. I just can't believe he would have kept all that crazy inside himself if you'd stayed together. I'm concerned for you, OP. You shouldn't be living alone, while your ex is behaving so desperately. Can you have a friend come stay? Adding in that him wanting you to pimp him out to her is just straight up delusional. He talked up how much they had bonded in such a short time, but I bet she was just enjoying a few nice dates with a guy who had been hitting on her all year. This is still his house, so until you have a separation agreement, you may get into trouble changing the locks. That's not how we met. He has been a patron at my gym for the past 6 months, maybe a year. Things were happening much earlier than you thought. Thanks for your update. I really needed to see the end of story. And OP, know you're stronger. Much, much stronger to face your fear and did everything you did. You can feel worthless, that you don't deserve sympathy, to be loved and other bad thoughts. but you know you value yourself. It's okay to feel bad, to cry, to ask if you did the right thing. It's gonna be a really rough process, but I promise that yourself in future will hug yourself today and say, thanks for standing up for us, for what you went through. Best wishes.